Welcome to Future Ready Visionaries for New Tomorrows. Today we have a fabulous guest, Britt Griscom. He's next door, so the energy and power is intense in the transmission that you're going to get today. He is my husband and a visionary who has been exploring, researching and really absorbing ideas around prosperity, about peace, about positivity. He is a man of science. He loves logic. And so normally you wouldn't necessarily put together the idea of positivity and prosperity and logic and science and a sense of peace and depth and consciousness and humanity and love. But yet there is a marriage of that. And so let's launch into this conversation, Britt. Thank you so much for being here today with us.
I'm happy to be with you.
Great. So I want to really talk about the idea of the marriage of science and logic and prosperity and positivity. How does that occur for you? Because normally when we think about science and logic, we think about, and I may be just, being very generalizing here, but not very exciting, very up people.
So the question is why? What is the link between
What does that marriage feel like for you, being logic, science, and positive and prosperous and kind of upbeat about life?
Well, I wasn't born upbeat. I was kind of born into a belief system where that everything was going bad and that the apocalypse was around the corner, and I didn't have a positive outlook really until the last. I'd say until about 10 years ago. And it started to change when I read Ray Kurzweil's book, Singularity is Near. And that brought my awareness to some evidence that I hadn't considered and that my culture hadn't considered and the media hadn't considered. And really, I don't think my culture really had examined the evidence. Because we all believe that there's something wrong and it's getting worse, and the evidence suggests the opposite of that. The link between science and technology and prosperity and abundance is really clear. It's the science and the technology that creates the abundance, and it's the abundance that creates the longevity and the prosperity that we enjoy today. And we can talk about all the evidence for that. But once I started to know the evidence, then I started to have a much more positive outlook. And besides, even if the evidence weren't clearly in an upward trend, I would still choose a positive outlook. When bad things have happened to me and to us, I've realized that we always have a choice to interpret things positively or negatively. It's up to us.
So what's the muscle that you use for choosing positivity? I know that you say you have a choice, and so let's say you're facing a difficult situation, which feels really bad, which feels awful. How do you go about looking at it in a positive light when everything seems to be saying, it could be you've lost your job, or you've somebody that is ill, or somebody's dying. How do you choose the positivity in that?
Well, the thing is that things don't exist, experiences don't exist for us by themselves. They exist in relationship to other experiences. In other words, when something bad happens, we automatically compare it to normal and consider it bad. And so, but that's a choice. You could compare it to normal and consider your situation bad, or you could compare your situation to something worse, and then you find there's something to be grateful for.
Right.
And when we had our accident, and you and Leah were burned, my despair was so intense that I couldn't. Just comparing our situation to normal was too overwhelming to me and filled me with so much despair. It forced me to choose a different outlook, a different perspective.
Right.
And that perspective was, you know what? We're alive. We're not disfigured. there are many people who are much worse off than us, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful that things weren't worse, and that put me in a positive mindset. And we always have that choice to choose to appreciate what we have.
Right. And I think that what you're just talking about, that despair, it can be agonizing just to stay in that place because there's no forward movement. It's almost like you become in this vacuum of self-annihilation in a way. Yeah. And to have that positive outlook, at least you're going somewhere else. It's allowing some new possibility. So would you say that each person, no matter how bad their situation is, that there's something they can look for that is good?
Absolutely. I mean, even if you're like in my situation, even if something bad happens to me, I can be grateful that I'm not disfigured, that I'm not in prison, that I'm not dying, that I'm not sick, that I'm not alone.
Yeah.
But even if I were all those things, even if I were sick and alone and in prison and disfigured
and dying,
I would still have something to be grateful for, which was, namely, that I'm not dead.
Yeah.
That I'm alive. I'm still alive, and that's still worth a lot to me.
So talk about what that being alive is. What are the things that you are being grateful for when you're looking at through that lens of gratitude? With all these negatives happening, you're still grateful that you're alive. So what world are you looking at that you're grateful for? What do you see? What are you experiencing? What are the senses that you're using to allow this world to come to feed you, to nourish you then?
Just being alive is a gift.
Yeah.
Just being able to experience life.
Yeah.
And you and I, because we're healthy and relatively young, we take it for granted. But I remember when my dad was dying, he just wanted one more day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he was willing to suffer to have a little bit more time. That's how valuable life is.
Yeah.
When you are close to not having it,
yes,
you will do whatever it takes to
right.
have more of it. Almost all of us will.
Yes. Yes.
And because life really, the capacity to exist, the capacity to experience, is a gift. And it's easy to take for granted, but when it's almost taken away from us, then we want more of it.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the wonderful gift of life. And we can look at it and appreciate it, and yet we still find ourselves saying, but it's really difficult to feel grateful for this life when there is war, there's actual conflict and terrible things happening all over the world. My neighbor's son has got cancer. I've got this, I've got that. So it does sometimes feel like things are bad. So how would you work with that? Are things better?
As I was saying, that's the culture that we're born into.
Yeah.
That's the evidence that we are presented with. That's what the media tells us. And why does it? So why does the media, why is most news negative? I mean, probably 95% is about bad things. As they say in the media business, in the news business, if it bleeds, it leads. Why is that? It's because the media, it's not their fault. They know their customers. They know what we want. And what we want is to be told of dangers. Because we are primarily, our primary goal is to survive. And the best way to survive is to be very vigilant about possible threats, possible dangers. And so that's what they're giving us, constant awareness, constant evidence of threats and dangers. And why is that? Because that's what our amygdalas in our brain, that's what they're programmed to look out for. I mean, we are descended from animals that were hyper vigilant about survival. Like that. So there was let's say 1 million years ago, there were hominids, and some of them were very vigilant about snakes in the grass and constantly on the lookout, and others not so much. And and which ones do you think were more likely to survive and leave children and have their genes be passed on? Well, it was the more vigilant ones, right? And you have to think about this over millions of generations of animals. That those animals created us. We are descended from those animals, and so that's why we are hyper vigilant, always looking out for danger. And so that's what we experience in the news. That's what we notice is the threats, the dangers, the things that could kill us. But the evidence is actually suggests something else.
Okay, so let's talk about some of that evidence. What evidence is there to say that, let's say, things are getting better and that, yes, there's still war and struggle and everything, but overall, there's an upward swing for the majority? Is there evidence of that?
Yeah. There's a lot of evidence. Hans Rosling, who's this Swedish statistician, has this great YouTube video, and it's called 200 Countries, 200 Years, 4 Minutes. And he plots the health and the prosperity of 200 countries all over the world over the last 200 years. And he plots it from, so on one axis there's longevity, like how long people live, and on another axis there's prosperity, like how much money they have.
All right. So that's pretty good. That's pretty clear what they're measuring. So it's not like, how many people are doing better, but just an actual measurement of prosperity.
Yeah, this isn't feelings or, this is actual facts.
Yeah.
And 200 years ago, pretty much all the countries were poor and sick. And then you can see over time they become rich. All of them become richer and have more longevity. They live longer. And so basically things are getting better, not just for Europeans or Americans, but for everybody. Things are getting better for everybody. So it's not like we're taking the resources from Africa or South America. No, Africa, their situation is a lot better than it was 200 years ago. And in South America, their situation is a lot better than it was 200 years ago. So everybody's getting wealthier and living longer, and I think that's a good thing. I think that, like, when you may say, oh, well, what is your quality of life? When you may live longer, but your life sucks. Well, no, I don't think that's true. I think that when your children are dying of dysentery, that's not going to be a good life for you. You're going to have a lot less satisfaction than if your children are living and prospering. So that's some evidence, and then another person I've learned a lot from is Peter Diamandis, and he gave this great TED Talk called "Abundance is Our Future," and he says that in the last 200 years, our lifespan has doubled. Our average, this is for all humans, not just in America. Our lifespan has doubled. Our average per capita income has increased by 3 times. Childhood mortality has gone down by a factor of 10. Cost of food has gone down by a factor of 10. And this includes inflation. This is in today's dollars, okay? The cost of electricity has gone down by 20 times. The cost of transportation has gone down by 100 times. The cost of communications have gone down by 1,000 times. And in the U.S., Matt Ridley says that for poor people in the U.S., 99% of them have electricity, water, toilet, refrigerator. 95% have TV. 88% have mobile phones. 70% have cars. 70% have air conditioning. Now, these are people who live below the poverty line in the U.S.
Right.
Their level, the way that they live, is much, much better than the richest people, in the lives of many of the richest people, except for maybe like kings who have slaves and tons of slaves. But their lives are much better than the lives of most rich people 200 years ago.
Right.
And that's the general trend is how are we going into the future? Well, in the future, basically, like, poor people live like rich people live better than rich people before.
Right.
And middle class people live better than that, and rich people live better than that. And so in the future, when you look in the future, how's that going to look? Well, poor people are going to live like middle class people today, and middle-class people are going to live like rich people. And that's,
right.
So compared to our, and so again, it's a question of what you compare it to. Like,
right.
Compared to how we're going to live in the future, well, we're very primitive, right?
Mm-hmm.
But compared to our ancestors 100, 200 years ago, we have unbelievable lives. We live in this incredible age of prosperity. And if you look at the evidence, I don't think you can deny that.
What would you say to people who would say, well, yes, this prosperity is coming at a tremendous cost, meaning, look at the natural resources that are being depleted, look at the pollution that we're creating. We're creating, oceans full of plastic. We are getting, more and more animals are becoming extinct. So how do you balance that conversation when people say, well, it's at a tremendous price, and can we afford that price? Can we continue to afford that price?
Well, there is a price. There's a price for modernity,
mm-hmm.
and there's a price for not having modernity.
Yeah.
And the thing is that the price for not having modernity is higher, and that's why people live longer and are more prosperous today than they were 200 years ago, because that price was higher.
Right.
Their lives were shorter and poorer.
Yeah.
And then there's the question of, well, but we're destroying the environment, and isn't this a huge problem? It is definitely a problem. It's definitely a challenge for us. It's something that we need to overcome. The Earth is both a resource, both a source and a resource for us. And if we don't care for it properly, then we're going to destroy ourselves. I mean, we do not exist apart from
right.
the Earth. Now, that doesn't mean it's not okay to transform the Earth into something that works better for us. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, okay, we're cutting down forests and we're building, we're putting tree plantations in their place, but we still have trees there. And those trees are still creating oxygen. And basically we're transforming the Earth into something that works better for humans. That doesn't mean anything goes. It doesn't mean we can just put as much carbon dioxide into the air as we want.
Right.
Because that doesn't work for us.
Right.
So
but also about the trees.
About what works for us.
Yeah, and also I think that
we have to take care of our source.
Right, exactly. And I think that technology can really help us to become better caretakers. I mean, that's one of the advantages that I really appreciate about technology is, yes, there is a seduction or bad things, negative things can happen. We can use technology negatively, but there's also tremendous potential. For instance, there's the X project where they are giving a prize for someone, the X Prize, where they will give money for great inventions, for ending hunger, or I think there's this one project where they're looking at how they can create a device that can be like a portable medic, where you can really scan your body, X-ray it. You could be in the middle of the Sahara, and you could get up-to-date, most current information on what's happening inside of your body and what the best treatment is.
Yeah.
Right? And so there's tremendous opportunity there. And also in terms of the rainforest, I mean, I do have to say there, though, that, if you chop down the rainforest, it's not just the trees you're cutting down. There's a whole ecosystem that gets destroyed. So it's not just about replanting trees, but I would add to that, as we become more conscious about our relationship to nature and how we are in this symbiotic relationship, that we can create technology and have a better way of creating those resources that we need.
Yeah, it's not going to work for us to cut down all the forests. You know what I mean? It's like humans need nature. We need wildness.
Right.
Both for oxygen and just as a place to visit.
Let's talk a little, I'm going to change direction a little bit. Two things I want to talk to you about. One is, it doesn't work for us to destroy our environment. And two, like you just said, we need our wilderness, our wildness. What is it that we get from nature other than it being like a fuel, a plant to eat, serenity? Like, does nature have a sentience, a quality that it exudes? Because is there a beingness in nature that we are drawn to because we recognize our source?
Yeah, I think it's psychologically healing.
Yeah.
But see, we know that, and that's why we created national forests, national parks, and so we're okay. It's okay. That's the message. It's okay.
It's okay, and at the same time, there are, vast plots of the earth being destroyed to create dams in China, in India, in parts of Africa. So that also is happening. I mean, there is turmoil, there is destruction, and that we can be okay with that, but we can also acknowledge, this cost we need to address, because that kind of way of doing, getting fuel or power is not so okay.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting better and better ways of getting power and the energy that we need. And this cost of solar electricity has plummeted recently, and this is just awesome.
Yeah.
And pretty soon we're going to have solar panels on virtually every roof, and I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
But the key thing is that people will say, but we don't have the right to change, to destroy ecosystems. Well, we are nature. We are an expression of nature. And when we destroy an ecosystem, well, I mean, you and I, this house right now used to be a natural ecosystem, right? And we live in what used to be a natural ecosystem, and humans have transformed it into something that works for humans. And that's what cities are. We take a natural ecosystem, we transform it into something that works for humans. People will say that's wrong, but if they really believe that, they should move out of the city and stop using electricity and live like our ancestors did 10,000 years ago. But we are part of a transformational process of nature, and we are nature.
Right.
We are nature, and we are really an amazing part of nature.
Yes.
We're not the only species that is intelligent or that uses tools or that is sentient, in my opinion. But we are the only one that's made it to the moon. I mean, there's something special about us, and it's not because God made us in His image or something like that. It's our intelligence. We are amazing problem solvers, and we are that. And we're still part of nature. And I just see it as our destiny to see the stars and to be. We need to become a multiplanetary species to ensure our own survival. Because if an asteroid comes and hits, if an asteroid the size of the asteroid that hit 65 million years ago that wiped out the dinosaurs, if that were to hit us now, that would could wipe us out. We need to become a multiplanetary species, and so we need to create civilizations on Mars and on the moon and on asteroids.
Yeah, just as much as the ants keep building their ant hills, there isn't nobody's saying, "Oh my gosh, what right do the ants have?" We will continue to proliferate throughout the planet and to other planets and into the universe. I don't think there's any problem with that. Why not? I mean, it's a huge multiverse out there. Yeah. So we don't need to be afraid of we're going to take all the bad stuff that we do here. Well, we're just exploring. We're just curious. We are nature growing and expanding and moving around, not separate.
And we have the right to transform nature. Yes, we destroy and we create, just like all species. And but we have to be conscious in our transformation.
Right.
We are transforming it into a planet that works best for us. And so the species that work well with us are going to be preserved, and those that don't aren't going to be preserved, except in natural environments, which, like I said, we'll always have natural environments. And when I say natural in that case, I mean, the normal sense of nature, that is like non-human nature. We're always going to have wild environments because we need to explore that. But we don't want to live there because our quality of life is much lower in wilderness than it is in civilization. And that's why we use all the tools that we do. And, some people say, no, our quality of life sucks compared with our quality of life in our natural state. And I say to that, well, why do you use a cell phone? Why do you use electricity? Why do you use a car? Right. If you really believe that, go back to nature. Yeah. See if it works for you. I think if it worked for you, you would be there, but you're not. So we are transforming the planet into something that works for us, and we have that right. We are that part of nature, just like all of nature transforms its environment. we've been doing that. We're going to continue to do that, but we have to be vigilant as we do that, because if we are not, if we like raise the carbon dioxide levels too high in the skies, or if we pollute too much, we're going to destroy ourselves. So in terms of our own self-interest, we have to be smart about how we do it.
Right.
We have the right to transform the earth, but we need to be smart about it. And because if we don't, we could extinguish ourselves.
Yeah. And so I think what I'm hearing here is that as we evolve and we create, there needs to be a continued evolution in consciousness that is more inclusive. That is I think that happens just with, as we notice with technology. It isn't just for the few, for the 99%. As technology really advances, it becomes accessible for the whole. More and more people will have that technology, whether it's cell phones or the access to the internet, and that in turn then educates, inspires, and creates more potential. And so, as we evolve, there is a hope for more evolution in consciousness so that we are inclusive. Let's talk a little bit about consciousness, and you've been kind of speaking about that as we've been saying. Let's talk about specifically about consciousness in humans and what you feel are the key areas that we could have more growth, more education. That would really help.
I love consciousness because science doesn't really have anything to say about it. It's really such a mystery. Science only deals with verifiable objects. And, my consciousness is not verifiable to you. I mean, you can't know exactly what I'm thinking or feeling. Mm-hmm. You only know it from the things that I say and the things that I do, things that are measurable. You could, take a picture of my brain waves and get an idea of that. But that's not consciousness itself. Those are the external components, the external things that often come with consciousness. So consciousness is not verifiable, so science doesn't really have much to say about it. I mean, the prevailing assumption is that the brain causes consciousness, but we don't really know. It's possible that the brain is a radio antenna. Mm-hmm. I hope that the brain causes consciousness, because I want to be able to upload. You know what I mean? Like, for us to become an interstellar species, bringing our meat bodies across time, across vast distances of space, is just going to take forever. What we need to do is figure out how to upload our minds into bits, and then we'll be able to transmit those bits across space, and we'd have to send a receiver the slow way. And then once the receiver is there, then we can just transmit our bits. Like, for example, for us to go to Mars, that's an easier example. Once we can take a picture of our mind files, once we can upload our minds into a computer, then we send a receiver to Mars, and then so rather than have to spend, a year and a half to get to Mars, we just send our mind file to Mars, and it downloads into some sort of body that works on Mars. Like, our bodies aren't going to work that well on Mars because there's no oxygen and it's really cold. But if we could download into some sort of robot that works well there, then there's no reason why we couldn't colonize Mars. But the key is that we've got to figure out how to take pictures of our minds, and that assumes that our minds are a product of our brains, and we don't really know that. I hope that's true. But
also, it's assuming that, when you take that picture of your mind files, that's all that it is. That's your consciousness, the whole of you, and that your whole isn't informed by life from moment to moment. You may have data files of memories and experiences, but what keeps everything alive is interacting with reality in life. So I'm just not sure how. I mean, you may be able to send mind files and to in a robot and explore and move around, but without a living consciousness here, what would that look like? Could you exist without this body and this consciousness?
I don't know. I think again, it depends on whether our minds are a product of our brains. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I'm not sure about that. I mean, this is a big inquiry that I have. I mean, I long for the source. You know what I mean? I long for communion, and I don't know if it's my. And sometimes I've experienced, that communion with the source, and sometimes I experience it as that my source is the source of everything. That is that I'm part of a larger consciousness. But then other times I think, no, that's just my consciousness. And that my consciousness is just a product of my brain. So I don't know, when you look at consciousness, like where I stop and where the world starts. It's a big mystery to me.
Yeah. Well, which of those ways nourishes you more? Which of those ways opens more doors for you, would you say? Just like we were saying about, earlier, about, you can look at your situation as worse or better than others. Like, which of these two experiences would you say feeds you more or opens more possibility?
Well, certainly the experience of that my source is the source, that I'm part of a larger consciousness, that nourishes me. Mm-hmm. Does that mean that I should choose that interpretation? I don't know. Mm-hmm. Like I said, the realm of consciousness is different from the realm of objects, because with objects, we can verify, you and I can both measure something, and I say, oh yeah, that's exactly 1.1 inches, and you measure it, and that's exactly 1.1 inches. It's all verifiable. In consciousness, it may all be made up. That may be why there are so many religions and so many different belief systems. Is that that basically whatever we think, becomes real to us. It's possible that none of that nothing in consciousness is real, except that we are creators. Mm-hmm. That whatever we think or imagine, that becomes true for us.
Right.
And that's what we experience, and that's why there are so many religions. I mean, maybe that's how it is. I don't know.
I like the idea of, in the Buddhist religion, about the idea of bardos, these worlds, that exist. And in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, when the spirit or the soul is, leaving the body and moving on, they really encourage you to focus on the clear light. They say, as beloved, focus on the clear light and not to become distracted by this world or that world. Because I think there's something to be said. Yes, I think, we create these emanations of whatever we think, we believe in, we make it real, we put our feelings into it, it has texture, it has form. And yet there's something else deeper than the mind theater and the feeling theater. And I think that we experience that as communion, or we long for that space without all this noise and surface fluttering that goes on. There's something else, and I think that's part of our future, it's part of our past, it's a home, and it's where we feel belonging, it's where our riches are as humans, where we're not dependent on external circumstances. I mean, yes, our bodies are dependent on food and water and shelter and everything, but there's a part of us that is whole and ongoing. And I think that is something in our consciousness that is very, very powerful and nourishing. And worth growing and exploring, I would say. Worth having an education about. Worth investing in terms of creating prosperous futures. Because if we feel connected and belonging and home, what kind of technologies would we create then?
Yeah, and it's possible that if we could replicate our brains and put it into a different substrate, rather than the meat substrate, if we could put it into a computer substrate, it's possible that by replicating, if we could do an exact replica of our brains, that would bring with us, that would also replicate what you would call the soul, or what
I don't know. It's
those
yeah
feelings and the source and longing and all that stuff. Maybe that would all be replicated too. I don't know.
Well, I don't know. It's like your minty toothpaste. It has all the quality. It has that cooling thing. It has the minty flavor, refreshing. But it's not mint. It's not the mint. It has everything that you would think is mint, but it's not mint. And I wonder what you're calling meat. The meat body. I just kind of feel a bit affronted by that because it's assuming that all these cells and all these muscles and the bone have no consciousness, or that they're just kind of functioning parts. And I kind of have to disagree that I don't experience the body, and my body is in uproar right now, saying, "Don't talk about the body in that way." I mean,
I've been reading science fiction lately, so that's importing that term. But yeah, you're right. That's probably not the best.
No, it's kind of disrespectful.
Sort of a lack of intelligence, so it's probably not the best term.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that, and what I mean to say with bringing up the body is that it too is an antenna or a perceiving of information that creates this mind that nourishes and informs the mind, through the cells that perceive light, through the cells that perceive heat and distinguish between shade and the sense of all the senses of smell that tell us this person is dangerous because our noses are smelling the biochemistry of someone standing in front of us. I would say that
those all might be replicable, though.
I wonder about that.
I mean, vision, hearing, smell. I mean, there's no reason why we couldn't have sensors for that.
What is it the Tyrell Corporation in the Blade Runner says about the replicants? More real than real. But what do all the replicants want? They want more life. They want reality. What makes them live longer are the memories, human experience. I'm not saying that's science or that's how it is, but even in the fiction of that movie is that sense of like there's something to be said about human consciousness. Can it really be replicated? We can get bodies to perform functions. We can get have their minds perform function, but can we create something that is soulful?
Yeah, I know. If we take a picture of, if we replicate my brain or maybe my whole body, and send it to Mars, will it be
Britt?
Will it be me?
No.
I don't know.
It's like that. Did you hear that This American Life story that they did? And it was about this guy who had his bull cloned.
Yeah.
Because he loved the bull. It was a show bull, and it was amazing. And it was not his bull that was cloned. It was not at all. The cells were the same.
Yeah, but that's slightly different because there you're starting from birth.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that. Like I think that bulls, like most animals, have language, which means that I think they make conclusions. And so this new bull was cloned and made a different set of interpretations, a different set of conclusions, and so they therefore became a different bull. Mm-hmm. Whereas I'm not talking about cloning me and starting me from birth. I'm talking about taking a picture, an exact picture of my brain and my body as it is exactly right now, that would have all the conclusions and all the interpretations I've already made so far in my life. Mm-hmm. And then if you send it somewhere else, maybe that would still be me. I mean, would I wake up on the other side of that transmission and say, "Hey, now I'm here"?
Well, I think that's something that we're going to have to see what happens in the future. We're all, waiting at the edge of our seats for those realities where, a lot of us are curious. I'm very curious about that. I wonder if in this lifetime, if I'm going to actually get out off planet Earth and see the moon and have a closer experience of the cosmos. Maybe it's time for all of us to imagine what it would be like to be off planet Earth. Not because it's so scary or awful here, but just the sheer curiosity and joy of travel, exploration, adventure. One more topic that I want to talk to you about, and that is about financial prosperity, because we're talking about prosperity in terms of our consciousness and attitude and behavior and approach. So let's talk a little bit about financial prosperity. What does that look like for you, and what are the things that can help people create distinctions that help them move and get on that road of prosperity?
Well, I think a good guide for this is actually Benjamin Franklin.
Uh-huh.
And, he was one of the original. He was a powerful force in shaping our culture in America. And he said that the keys to his success and the keys to everybody's success is two things: industry and frugality. In other words, work hard, and be careful with your money. And most people are just not very good with money, unfortunately. And so they spend money on things that don't give them a return. And I've learned a lot from Robert Kiyosaki. He makes the distinction between assets and liabilities. And the way he distinguishes the two is he says that assets put money in your pocket every month, whereas liabilities take money away from you, and that money never comes back. So I think the important thing is to spend your money on assets. You don't need a new TV. You don't need a new car every couple of years. Just save that money and invest it. Why? Because the goal for me is financial freedom. Now, that's not exactly the same as being rich. What it means is that you have your assets, your investments, giving you enough money each month to pay your bills, such that you're free to work or not work, to do what you like, to spend time with your family, and you don't have to spend your life in toil and like working for somebody else all the time and going to a job that you hate. But it takes years to create that. You have to start now and start saving. Stop wasting your money. Start saving. Start investing, and such that each month you're getting a little bit more as you invest more and more. You're getting a little bit more each month, and eventually, what you're getting in each month is more than what you're spending each month, and that's financial freedom. Mm-hmm. That's what's important to me, is being able to live how I choose on my own terms.
And what would you say to invest in? Because you're talking about, invest. Where do we start investing?
Well, I love real estate as an investment, and that doesn't mean, that doesn't necessarily mean buying a house, because often houses are bad investments. There's a different, people often don't think clinically, rationally about the house that they live in. They don't think of it as an investment. They just think, I like that house, And if you buy a house, that means you're I don't know, that if you own a house, that means you're at a certain level of wealth. Well, the reality is the bank owns your house until you pay it off, and even then you have to pay property taxes, so you don't completely own your house. You have to think of everything you buy as an investment, I think. And so just think about, okay, if you're thinking about buying that house, if you rented it out, what kind of return would you get on your money? And so, buying condos and buying properties to rent out to other people, not to flip, not because you think they're going to appreciate, but because you can rent them out and make a good return and have each one bring you a little piece of what you need each month to have financial freedom. Mm-hmm. And so I love real estate, but as an investment, you have to think about it, very logically, very just in terms of the numbers. It's just all about numbers. Mm-hmm. How much money is this going to bring me every month? Not, I like this place, or I'd like to live there. It's, how much does it bring in each month? What's the return? Mm-hmm. And when you think that way and you look hard enough, and it's not easy to find good investments.
Right.
Most investments are bad investments.
Right.
That's true even in real estate. It's like you have to look at 100 properties to find one property that works. But so it's always a needle in the haystack.
Right.
If you find that one property and you just buy a couple each year, you're on your way to financial freedom.
Right. So it's also, you're talking actually about being financially literate, having a financial education, which isn't necessarily lined up out there for people. You have to kind of pursue that, and you have to ask yourself questions, such as, what does wealth mean for me? What kind of wealth or prosperity do I want? And like you were just saying, for you, rich doesn't mean whatever it mean for others. For you, it means having freedom to do what you want with your time. You want to be time rich, to have time with your family, to do your sports, to do your reading, your research. And so for each person, that prosperity may look very different, and it may mean challenging some of the ideas that have in the past represented the symbols that have represented prosperity, which may mean a big house or X number of cars or designer clothes. It doesn't mean that those are excluded, but there needs to be a different person digesting the information and the things that we call prosperity.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people think of wealth as like just blowing your money as quickly as possible.
Well, that's what we see in the movies. You know, Wolf of Wall Street, money, money, money.
Hip-hop music. I mean, it's all about blowing money as quickly as possible. You know, and that, you know, that is not the way to financial freedom. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like instead of wasting your money on drinks and bars and women and all that stuff, you know, invest. Buy properties that are going to give you money each month, and then you're free.
Yes. And well, what do you do with the piles of money that you've invested once you've gotten taken care of your needs? You've got piles of money. There's tremendous good that can happen. I mean, I just love Elon Musk. I think that's his name, and he's the inventor of the Tesla, or he's funded the investment for the Tesla car, and now he's doing the. Was it?
Yeah, he's the CEO of Tesla.
Tesla, yeah, and then also is it SpaceX, yeah. SpaceX, and so
God bless him. I mean, I don't recommend gambling the way he does, but God bless him. First of all, he's a genius. He's somebody who thinks very, very, very clearly, and he talks about first principles, like, hey, let's forget about what you've been told. Let's find out what's really true, and build up from there. I mean, he thinks very clearly, and God, I mean, it's awesome. I mean, he is a true visionary, and somebody hopefully you'll get on the show at some point.
Yeah, I hope I can interview him. Yes.
And Steve Jobs. I mean, there are people who really are inventing the future, and it's just awesome to have that happen during our lifetime.
Yes, and what a great place to arrive in terms of consciousness to fulfill our own needs, and then begin to think on much bigger levels of how can I impact humanity? How can I participate in a bigger game, give a bigger play, prosperity for all? And that's what this whole summit is really about, is really bringing these conversations to the front and saying, okay, take care of your needs. These are the tools that are useful for taking care of your needs through your consciousness, engaging your consciousness, and then what worlds would you like to play in?
And that's the amazing thing, is that they're doing this through business. You know what I mean? Like through capitalism. And that's what business is all about. Like you can, rip people off, but your business is not gonna survive. You know what I mean? Like if you want a business that makes a lot of money, you need to serve a lot of people. You know what I mean? You need to listen to what people need and want and provide that. And so a business is not a zero-sum game. It's a positive-sum game. The way that you, or actually it's a non-zero-sum game. You can both lose or you can both win. And these guys, like Elon Musk and the founders of Google, like they help lots of people, and that's why they make so much money. Like if you want to get rich, serve people. And that's what's amazing. People think, business is all about selfishness and greed. No, it's not like that. That's not the truth. The truth is the way to make money is to serve others. So there's this altruism that's right there in the heart of business. The way to get what you want is to help other people get what they want.
Right.
And that's amazing. That's a game worth playing.
Yeah. Well, that's a wonderful note to bring our interview to an end. Britt, thank you so much for bringing all these great ideas and your passion for prosperity and futurism and technology, and just that sense of what's possible, and really helping us to connect to what's possible. That's awesome. So where can people find you? Where are you talking about these ideas and letting people know where you're at?
They can find my blog just by searching under Britt Griscom on Google.
And they can follow you on Twitter too, at Britt Griscom, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.